been validated yet. So
Wow.
there definitely seems to be some kind of weird lag or problem with Search Console right now.
Mm.
Validated yet. So
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of SEO Fight Club. I'm just popping out the YouTube chat, setting it to the live chat so I can see all the messages. Saying hello as we speak and reminding people to ask questions. Be sure to ask early because lately it's been hard to get to everybody's questions. So if you have something urgent or important, make sure you ask early because if you ask too late in the show, we might not be able to get to everything, but we'll see. Um, so yeah, with that, let's talk about uh, what we're going to talk about today. So we have a bot watch from Charles, and so we'll do that. And then I want to talk about a couple stories. And then I want to talk a little bit about what I'm seeing different with entity handling in Google search. And then we'll go to question and answers. So with that, I will, like a pro, enable screen sharing for Charles and hand it over.
all right, everybody should see my screen now.
Yep.
So it's funny, last week we were talking about how quiet everything has seemed to have been. Um, and just as we were talking about how quiet it was, things were in the works. Things were changed, and a lot of things changed last week. So yeah, last week was an interesting week overall. So just to take a look at the past month since the last bot watch which was actually almost a month ago. We were on Chrome 128.0.6613 minor build or patch 137. Since then, we've actually gone up two major build numbers. We were at 129 through most of the month of October, and then last week we went to 130. So you'll notice I kind of blacked out the last numbers because we did change multiple times. There were multiple minor builds in there, but I just kind of wanted to show with this screen how they went through three, I guess, major builds or whatever that number would be called. It does actually have a name, and I keep forgetting what it is. So to dig into this just a little bit more, if we double click down onto last week, we can see what happened up through Monday. Around Monday afternoon, we had crawling, but so you'll notice on the left-hand side there around Saturday and late Saturday, there were days where we actually almost stopped getting crawls from the search engine. And that number, so what is that number? That number was actually only in the hundreds, which is a ridiculously low number of crawls for us to get at any point in time from the search engine. So whenever I see that, I know change is a brewing. Um, and it definitely was, because around 2 o'clock on Monday, the new build, the 130, came out, the minor patch of 58. You'll also see the pattern near the end there. We started getting a lot fewer crawls, and later in the week, I guess it was around 2 p.m. on Thursday, a new minor patch came out. So that means Google rolled something out and then almost immediately decided, yeah, no, we didn't like this. So one of two things could have happened in my mind: is they could have decided they didn't like it, or there was a problem, or there was a feature that they wanted to release, couldn't get it out in the 58, and said, all right, it'll be a fast follow in the next build, which turned into 69. So we can see what happened last week. So this is one of the reasons why you see all the reports about, oh, there was all this volatility last week, because there was a lot of things changing. Google stopped doing some of the crawling while it was preparing for its swap over. It did its swap over, and then it had to do another one. Kind of digging into it just a smidge more for those of you that really want to see the numbers. Here are all the bots that crawled over the past month. So we went from 128, and then you'll see 129 had two different builds out there through the month of September, through the end of September, through most of October. And then by the end of October, we've already seen, in the past week and a half or week, we've already seen two builds on the new 130.
Cool.
Yeah.
And that's it.
And we've heard from the news that Google is now downgrading the rankings of content that is off topic from what websites normally present. And so this is a weird announcement, and I have difficulty believing it's anything but a dumpster fire. But the reason it's weird is because Google has previously said you don't need to worry about if you have a page on your site that's a different topic than other pages of the site. They said that's never a thing. And now they're flip-flopping. They're going the other way. They're saying if you have content that isn't like what you normally have, they're going to downgrade that.
So this has been
downgrade the piece of content that's unlike the others, or the site. That's a whole
the
animal.
piece of content is my understanding. So
Okay,
so this has been huge in the news.
Yeah, go ahead, Charles.
This has been huge. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you guys. This has been huge in the news space. So a lot of news sites, they have over the last few years, they've been getting more involved in doing affiliates and lead gen, and they've been having these third parties, sometimes not even third parties, just sometimes just like organizations within the larger organization. They'll spin up their own little organization that have these affiliate and or lead gen sections. And CNN did it. Well, CNN had the coupon. They had the coupons going back months, and they got rid of that, or no indexed, I think. They have their, I think it's CNN Blueprint. Forbes has their advisor. Fortune had their reviews. I'm missing one. Wall Street Journal had one, but they've all been getting hit. Now, word on the street had been they were manual penalties, but I kept asking people, I said, can you verify that? Can you show me a screenshot? No one ever could. Now Google's coming out and saying that they're manual. What I would guess the Google's doing is it's looking for separate CMS systems, trying to determine, is this a different CMS system than the main site is on? The problem with doing that is a lot of sites, like a big enterprise site, I'm thinking, any enterprise site I've ever worked on, they have multiple CMSs. They're all very different. So how is Google going to know that this CMS is okay and this CMS is not okay? I can think of many places on our sites. I can think of many places on previous company sites where there were totally different CMSs all operating in the same domain. So to your point, Ted, I think this could turn into a real dumpster fire real fast.
Well, so you have to ask. If I'm Fox, if that were true, and I believe that to be true, I'd be terrified, because you have let's just real simple. You have you have politics, weather, and sports. Those are not like each other. So you're
but you report on those all the time. So I think that the nuance is Google is saying, if you cover the topic all the time, that'll be okay. But if you have something new, and it's a flash in the pan, then that's not going to do so well.
Well, so here's what I've seen so far. So I'll take Forbes Advisor, which that's been hit. So I don't feel like I'm calling them out or narking on anybody here. But that whole section had been running for years and quite successfully. And just in the last couple of weeks, if you go to an Ahrefs or something and look at their traffic, it's just gone off. It's literally like a cliff, just right off a cliff. So the entire site doesn't seem to be hit, but that section of the site has definitely been hit. I have noticed I have a client, a consulting client I work with. They've seen some problems in the past month as well. And I think there's sections of the site, like a blog section or an information section, that's different from the rest of their section. Google doesn't seem to like that. And I'm working with them right now saying, hey, maybe we should break this into its own subdomain or something.
Yeah,
so let's go
I
back
would put it on a different branded domain and avoid the subdomain. But yeah,
the original thing, Ted. Why, from an engineering standpoint, if you're head of search now, congratulations on your promotion. Why would you do that? I mean, what would be the reason? I mean, we see them do things because it can improve the quality of results. And if I write a great article about something I don't typically write about, that doesn't seem to be at odds with the quality of results. Or they've done things to deal with their problems of scale. And I'm not seeing where this necessarily deals with problems of scale, unless you're saying we're going to classify your site as this, and anything we see outside of that band, we're just going to ignore. So we're not going to crawl it, process it.
Yeah, there's kind of two facets that I would look at in a case like this. And one, and keep in mind, all of this is tinfoil hat speculation. I don't know how Google does anything. I don't know why Google does anything. I'm just guessing. Okay. Um, but there are two facets I'd look at. One would be the motivation. And so if I had to guess at a motivation, it's that Google doesn't like how some authority sites are leveraging their authority to rank things that otherwise wouldn't be able to rank. So that's one possibility. All right, but I have a hard time with that because Google never cared about that in the past. So if that's new, I don't get what's in it for Google on that. The other possibility is that a lot of these plays that are doing this are lead gen, and you know who else does lead gen? Google. So that kind of makes more financial sense to me because Google does lead gen. A lot of people don't realize it, but when you set up a new GMB, if you put a crazy keyword in your business name in the GMB and you have a legitimate real business that's in good standing, you'll start receiving pre-approved business loan Visa cards that have your keyword on the plastic. And so the only way that happens is if Google is selling their data to these institutions. So Google's is in the lead gen business too, and they might not like supporting other people's lead gen opportunities. Um, so those are my guesses. They're either trying to shut down the SEOs with, I don't know, maybe competing with lead gen makes more financial sense. All right, so that's on the motivation side. And again, I don't know what Google's really doing, no clue. But on the engineering side, you have to think about how would they know the topics of a website and how would they recognize one that's new and different and unlike the main cohort? So at some point, they have to be tracking topics of pages. They'd have to know how many pages on a site are covering that topic, and they'd have to know how long that topic has been covered. So you can either have things that don't have a lot of coverage on a site, so small amount of pages, or you could have things that don't have a lot of history on the site, which are new things that are just coming onto there. So you start to imagine the types of data that they would have to store over time to be able to recognize, oh, this new article on tree frogs is unlike the other business pages they have. And so we should demote the tree frog one. So that's kind of what they're saying they're doing. But if they're doing it manually, that would be different. Then they're just going after people they don't like.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I can see that because the part of going back to helpful content, as they said, there's going to be some site signals. And that site signal could be what's the overarching topic of your site, and any page that doesn't conform to that particular topic, all of a sudden we're not going to give it as much love, and whatever that means, ranking, crawling, whatever it is. I can see that, but you still have to go and see that, Charles's plumbing site, wrote an article about tree frogs, and, say, hey, this is tree frog. It's not very plumbery. So, we're just going to discount it entirely. But who the people that be hit most by that, I would think, would be like PBNs that, will take articles and write articles on a multitude of topics. But how's that different from a news site?
Yeah. And it begs the question of how is it implemented? Because you have people out there that are putting lots of topics on a single page.
Mm-hmm.
But if Google is trying to find, the canonical topic of a page, then you got to go back to one topic per page to be sure you're doing it right and lumping your content together and in a cohort that won't be targeted. So, if it's all manual, I wouldn't worry about it. They're beating up on Forbes. If it's algorithmic, then I'm more worried about dumpster fires.
Yeah. Yeah, I smell a big old rollback coming on this one.
Yeah.
I don't see a way to do this without just, causing damage at scale.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going against things they've always said they didn't have. We don't have site level factors, we don't care if your site is, niched down, you can have many topics. And if you think about it, like this would be a total dumpster fire for online retail. So we have an online retailer, and for 1 or 2 months a year, they'll put up their Easter category. Oh, it's new. It's different. It's not like the other categories they have year round. Let's punish the Easter category for Easter. You
Mm-hmm.
know, so yeah, I can't help but think it would be a disaster if it was algorithmic. Um, so yeah, we'll keep an eye on that one. Let's see, there's a one or two more that I wanted to talk about. The other one is doubtful you'd see a big ranking drop over core Web Vitals issues. And you'll remember we've kind of always said that it's not a factor, and there have been multiple studies saying it's nothing. Now they're coming out and saying it's nothing. Um, but what's interesting is that John Mueller said we've been pretty clear that core Web Vitals are not a giant factor in ranking.
Wait, what?
And like, really? You've been pretty clear on that? You never came out saying Core Web Vitals was a really big deal. That's never happened. You haven't flip-flopped on the issue. And so I just thought that was a bit funny how they reinvent history on these things. So I don't think you've been pretty clear on that at all. I think it's taken you years to come out and tell the truth that it's not really going to impact rankings.
Yeah,
Um,
maybe from their position, it's like we're clear that, we intend for this to be a very big thing. And then, it didn't quite turn out the way. So now we're clear that it's not as big a thing as, we thought it was going to be in the past. So going forward, blah. So, they can say we were clear. But from us sitting out here where people still to this day, even with Google's more recent pronouncements, is not a big deal, going, how do, how do I get my Core Web Vitals scores in line so I can get rid of this penalty that I've got, this Core Web Vitals penalty, that they think is the reason.
all those businesses that paid for high dollar Core Web Vitals services did not clearly understand what they're saying now.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a reality that just doesn't match that statement. Because that statement, we've been pretty clear on it. Well, all these companies spent money based on the exact opposite of what you're saying now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, clear as mud.
The
I'm
problem is
curious.
that they gave a report. They gave a report with a number score, and I know at least in the enterprise world, you have a report with a chart. There you go. That magically turns into a KPI. Um, Anytime you give people a number in general, I think Google came out just relatively recently and said, "Hey, don't optimize your site to third-party metrics." And it's like, well, yeah, but if Moz is going to give me a number, why not optimize towards that number? Like it's it's there. But I agree 100%. It's never proven to be important. But they did create a report in GSC, and they did give us a number.
Well, we used to tune to first-party metrics, but Google took PageRank away.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I agree with you, Charles, on because once you have something out there, an outside party can come to the C-suite and say, look, you have a red number here coming from Google about your site. It's a red number, people. And all of a sudden it's like, oh, we got to do something about the red number because red numbers are inherently bad. And so it's not just a KPI, it's now a mandate. And so
in Google's reports, they have a needs improvement. So they're telling you this needs improvement, and then a failure late. And they're just like, well, what else? How else are people supposed to take that, Google?
Yeah. So Charles, at Fox, with all this stuff, when the Core Vital stuff came out, how was that handled? Because as an enterprise, when it first comes out and you're saying, oh my God, this is a thing. And, I'm sure you had parts of your site, if not, significant parts of your site that were yellow or red, but that it's going to be just an extraordinary expense. Sort of what did that process look like, as an evaluation process for doing or not doing something about it?
So it was a couple levels. So the first thing we did is I let everyone know in the C-suite, don't worry, everyone has bad numbers. Like I can look at our competitors, I can see, yeah, their numbers are just as bad as ours. So it's a race. We don't have to be the best. We just have to be better than everybody else. So the way I approached it is I didn't want that to suck up all of our time and energy. Plus, I know you guys had gone, this is years ago. You guys had done some tests and like, it doesn't seem to matter. I can't say, hey, Lee and Ted said this doesn't matter because there's still a report from Google with red lines on it. So the best way you approach this said, look, let's fix what we can fix. And at the time, CLS was a big cumulative layout shift was a big thing for us. So my goal was, and I told everybody, I said, we're going to fix one, maybe two things every month and just keep plugging away at it. And we're not going to fix it overnight, but that's okay. We don't need to fix overnight. We just need to be better off next month than we were this month. And in a year from now, we can look back and be in great shape. And that's actually exactly what we did. When this new IMP came out, I told everybody, I said, look, I'm not particularly worried about core web vitals in any way, shape, or form. With that said, these numbers are horrible. I'll have someone go in and once a month, every other month, they were going in and making some changes. One of the things we found with IMP is that the Google report didn't improve until months later. So we fixed it back in like May and June. Only now are our numbers starting to jump, just like in the last week or so. So I understood that just politically and logistically, we had to fix these issues. We couldn't just leave it sitting out there. But there's no way we could put all of our resources in, and it would suck up all of our time and energy. So I was just like, hey, we'll do one ticket a month, two tickets a month at the most, if they're small tickets and small fixes.
So without getting into the specific numbers, you did spend time and attention at multiple levels, on this, and you spent resources, addressing some of the stuff.
Definitely.
Across an organization like yours, would you say that was a small, medium, large, or huge number in terms if you had to calculate, the spend on that?
I would say it was medium to low, quite honestly, because most of the issues were templating issues. The biggest thing we had was the CLS, and I really wanted to fix it because it bugged me when I went to the website. There's nothing worse than the page jumping around when you're trying to read it. And I'm like, can we just, like, I could take that to anybody and say, even in a world without Google, do we want our page doing this? And everyone just like kind of agreed, yeah, you're right. We shouldn't really let the page jump around like that. So the cost was not too big because it was just for CLS, we just needed to set a min height, min width. That's all they had to do. Just go. And the problem was that there were so many different elements we had to do that to, that it just took a long time to go. I didn't want to spend, I didn't want to have our tech team maxed out for 3 or 4 months just doing that. I said, let's just do one thing in one place. And really what we did is I always let's attack the biggest problem first, the lowest hanging fruit. And that gives us a big jump. And then I could go back to leadership and say, okay, this is fixed. It looks good. But by the way, notice how our jump has gone up, but I don't see a huge jump in traffic. So there must not be something huge here. This is why we're doing it at such a slow level. And that kind of placated everybody to be like, yeah, okay, you're right. It's not worth dumping huge resources into this.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool.
That's the benefits of having a big site, is that everything's templated, and you make one change one place, it fixes, thousands and thousands of pages.
So you're saying you don't run a core report for every page on your site? What's wrong with you?
Sorry, Ted, I do not.
Yeah, I don't either. All right. So I wanted to talk about something different I'm seeing with entity handling in Google search. So here's kind of the classic, and this is all live today. So if you want to test these on your end, you can. I put in SEO benefits, we get their AI overview, and then we get a featured snippet that had the benefits listed. We also will see things like the benefits lists identified and put into the summaries. So this is along the lines of my theory of helpful content. But this is kind of the historic, this is how Google handled it. Then we saw entity cards where we do types of SEO, and they'd have these entity cards. And if we inspect one of these, we can see that they're even calling them entities, data hyphen entity name Black Hat SEO. They have machine readable entity IDs. They have stuff like that going on in their source code. So we see these entity cards. And now what I'm finding when I do searches is that there are different types of like child entities to a topic. So we're seeing different parts of the knowledge graph and the card system. So now when we say benefits of SEO, here we have entity cards for the benefits of SEO. So when we look at these, we inspect them, we can see that they have entity names and machine readable entity IDs as well. So this is part of the same system, but now this is a type of sub-entity for SEO. And a different type of sub-entity for SEO might be the hazards of SEO. So more entities with
Wait,
a
these don't
different.
have images. The bad ones don't have images like the good ones do.
Yeah. But it's interesting how, we're seeing more about the topical space in search now. And I thought that was really interesting because now I'm wondering for a given keyword, what are the subtypes of entities that we need to be considering? Because that's kind of a new thing. We haven't really been doing a lot of that to figure out, oh, well, I've got all my apple pie entities, but what are all the subcategories of apple pie entities?
Yeah, let's do something real quick because I'm curious now. So in that first column at the bottom, it says SEO takes 3 months. Does that have a machine readable entity ID?
Let's inspect. Um, it's showing the breadth first search engine result page entity ID, but it's giving the entity name as this. But I know if you go to this ID, you're going to get the breadth first search. So this is a thing, and this is a thing type if you're doing
Yeah.
universal data model.
Okay. So it's
Um,
not it's not that SEO takes 3 months now has its own entity ID.
it might. They're calling it an entity name. So this is the same presentation if we went types of hammers. Yeah, so we still so they're technically saying this is a breadth first search thing, and the specific thing is a sledgehammer. And so when you go into these, you get sledgehammer search results.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just interesting, hazards of hammers.
Oh, Lord.
If we can get it. There you go. That's a subcategory of hammer entities.
Vibration.
I can think of another hazard of hammers that's not listed.
Is it
So
related
I
to
thought
hand
that was
injuries?
pretty cool because it's an aspect of entities I haven't put a lot of thought into, and now I'm wondering how it might apply, and how can we find all of the subcategories of an entity, of a parent entity.
Yeah.
So yeah, is there a trick to find all the subcategories regarding hammers? I don't know. All right, so we'll get to some questions here. Let me stop sharing. All right, so the first question, is it okay to add schema to a WordPress page by using the custom HTML widget? It's probably the best way to do it because the plugins are so bad at it. Especially if you're wanting to do the Terry Samuels or Clint Butler style verbose schema. And just pasting in the JSON LD code. Yeah, that's probably how I would do it because I don't trust the plugins. How do you do it, Lee?
Yeah, I do it that way. You just throw it in there. Just real quick, I checked that entity ID, and it does go back to breadth first search. So it's not that SEO takes 3 months, has its own. That's the breadth first search.
Well, it
And
doesn't mean that SEO takes 3 months, doesn't have one. It's just that it would have a different one than the thing that Google is labeling. So
right.
it's like a thing class and a thing ID, or thing name.
Yeah.
So they're typing it in a weird way for probably application engineering reasons. Let's see. How do you deal with malicious link schemes designed for negative SEO? I think one of your biggest tools for bad links that other people point at you is redirect handling. So you can create like an HT access redirect that will look at the referring domain name and will redirect based on that. So if you see them coming from a particular site, you can redirect it to a throwaway domain name you control. And if you make that throwaway domain name a topically relevant page of content, and give it relevant anchor text linking back to one of your pages, you can actually launder those negative links into positive links with good context. So the fundamental of it is don't be the end point of the bad links. So they made your money site the end point of the bad links. You want to turn that into your money site was just the middle hop of a redirect chain to somewhere else. That somewhere else is a tiered link building page that's going back to where you need some link juice. And so you can actually turn bad links into good page rank. SEOs have been doing this since like the dawn of time. Um, and so, that's probably how I would handle it. And so you have two options. You could either just redirect it to a throwaway page on a throwaway domain and just forget about it, problem gone, or you could try to repurpose it for value. So those are kind of the two options. What do
You
you
know,
think?
I, I kind of went when you started to give your answer, you can redirect, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I kind of went with the when life gives you lemons approach. So when life gives you Viagra links, go build a Viagra site and redirect them to that and just, use them for what they're intended for. That's another possible approach rather than just, the link laundering is a good one too. But, if somebody's going to do your link building for you, why not take advantage of it a different way?
Any thoughts on this one, Charles?
No, I don't do much in the way of the Viagra space.
Yeah, yeah. I'm sure that Fox gets these problems, but you just have so much authority, they're not even worth addressing.
There are a few, and I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to give people ideas, but there are a few things you can do to an enterprise site that we do have to pay attention to, and we have resolved mostly. I know our competitors haven't, though.
All right, so what can the science of information retrieval tell us about SEO? Well, information retrieval goes back quite a ways, and so probably the golden era of information retrieval science was in the 70s, and TF, IDF, and stuff. And a lot of it's all based on library science. So, all of these concepts and stuff came out of how do we find information when it's on 250,000 papyrus scrolls? Difficult problems. How do you find the right one? Um, and so you can often create an analog to what search engines do with the library and the card catalog examples. Even Google is doing that in a lot of their help videos. They will explain search via the card catalog analogy. Um, but what you get because of that is there are books on information retrieval. There are algorithms, there are standards, there are technologies, and you can actually research how those work. You can research, how can you tell what's in use? So there are ways of figuring out what algorithms are in play. You could set up test pages that in theory would tell you is it one algorithm versus another. You could also go through, the standard academics for information retrieval, and then you can go through the patents and see what they're doing. And what you'll often see when you go through the patents is they'll name a couple of the standard algorithms, and then they'll throw in one more that you didn't hear of. And that one more that you didn't hear of might be a very interesting one to look at. And so, knowing that it's in the area of information retrieval tells us what it's kind of about, what it's for, and then we can look at the oddballs or the things they're inventing and see how they would relate. But yeah, the things uh, that I've kind of exploited in SEO based on information retrieval have been looking at things like how many results per keyword does Google offer up? And do those allocations change over time? And is there a DevOps where if they're rolling out something big, those allocations behave differently? Um, we used to look at uh, how many pages we could get indexed in very large test cases where we're trying to get hundreds of pages indexed, and we'd look at our success rate. Oh, we got 83% of them indexed. So there are things like that where we can see kind of technical limits of the system. At one point, we wanted to see if we put a page on the web with a million different words on it, how many of those words would get indexed? And how did that behave while it was getting indexed? And we found out from that experiment that Google was going to index from the top down. It was going to take about 48 hours, and then they'd stop at about 250,000 words into the document. And then we changed it. Well, what if we made the title of the page 1,000,000 words? Then what happens? And so, you learn about the constraints of the system by doing weird, goofball tests like that. You can find out, how it kind of works and what the limits are. So a lot of those things are useful as well. What do
I've
you
always enjoyed those tests more than the factor tests. Like, what will Google do with this? Do something weird and just see how Google reacts. I've also found those to be kind of a little more informative than just the straight up does it like H2 or H3 more. Not that those aren't helpful. I just, if I put a future date on an article, what does Google do? If I put a future date on an article, then I change it back 5 years. What does Google do? And just kind of test the limits.
Yeah. I think I would expand this question, they're talking about the science of information retrieval. I would go a step further. One of the things that I enjoy doing is, I could be reading an article about how scientists are, tackling the problems of taking different life forms and, classifying them or identifying them. And so, they've got this whole realm of, say, biological classifier algorithms. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. How do they think about that? What are they building into that? Because you can take that thought process a lot of times and go, ooh, SEO has a lot of analogous things. Can I take that and come back to all this wonderful data, that we have and apply it and get new insights into it? So I think any particular field that has, critical, analysis of data or those sort of problems, you can always bring them back into SEO, and usually you can find some interesting things, not always breakthroughs. Sometimes you can find breakthroughs. Sometimes it's a dead end, but I always find them, fruitful to try to apply other disciplines to this one.
Let's see. It's really about on-page and UX these days. I'm sure Charles can look all this up in about 3 seconds, but NerdWallet's best credit cards of 2024 is an excellent reminder of this. If you search the last few months on Web Archive, you can see how they've changed to a more UX-friendly design and rocketed back to #1 position. Well, you'd have to do a very careful study because they could have done a new website design and paired it with a press campaign, and then it wouldn't be necessarily the UX that made it rank better. So yeah, I'm not entirely convinced on the cause and effect of just the observation. It's possible, but we'd need a better study than just the observation. What do you think, Lee?
Yeah, in general, I don't think that I've seen a lot of where the UX has a high impact on SEO, especially in a very, very competitive space like that. There tend to be, other known major factors at play, like, link building campaign or other SEO things internally to the site that come into play as well. So, I'd want to take a look at, if you could, the source code from the page back when it ranked considerably lower and now. And there's also the possibility that, Google changes its algorithm. We've just come out of a core update, that sort of thing. So it's possible that the factors in play are what moved it up, because they had the things that Google now favors a little bit more coming out of this particular update, and the UX, or any other changes had nothing to do with it at all. So you have to identify and eliminate these other possibilities, I think, is where we're.
Yeah, and the other thing is that even if UX is another pathway to the top, which, I'm not saying it's not, I'm just saying I don't know if it is or it isn't. It doesn't necessarily invalidate all the other ones, because I looked this morning and nothing but Schema still ranks number one. I looked at keyword stuffed lorem ipsum, those are still ranking number one. So if those haven't changed, then I wouldn't say that your only path is UX. It might be a path, but it doesn't appear to be the only path. Let's see. How do you optimize for Google popular products? How can I use Quora for ranking there? I think well, there's multiple sections, and these things, some of these features are newer than my experience in ecom. So I've been doing SEO software for over 6 years now, and some of these things are less than 6 years old. So take what I'm saying here with a grain of salt, but I think you'd probably want to make sure you have your merchant center stuff, because even if it's not pulling from that, that's probably going to be a trust signal if you're a legitimate online retailer. And then you'd probably want to look at the tuning patterns and the implementation styles of the various pieces of information that are getting into that feature. So you'd find pages that are ranking well for it, and then you'd study what they're doing and how they did it. And then you'd make sure that your tuning is in that ballpark, and you'd make sure that your technical implementation on page is similar to what they did. And that would be the jumping off point. Is there anything you want to add to that, Lee?
No, it's not my backyard. So
Okay. Let's see. Client has many backlinks from many Web 2.0 subdomain blogs, but none of them are indexed when I check them one by one. So it sounds like tiers. So they have a money site, they have all these blogs, and then they probably spam the heck out of backlinks to those blogs that then link to the money site. Those blogs will probably never rank. So if they use those blogs and tiered link building, they won't rank, but that doesn't mean they're not doing good work. So the link juice from the link graph can still be passing through, even though those blogs don't rank. They might be propping up the money site. And that's typically what we see with tiered link building, and that's been working since the dawn of time.
yeah,
What do you
we've seen that. The link graph is separate from the search results that you can see and display, and we've seen forever that things that aren't indexed still pass power and can move the needle. In fact, like even with our the simple link tool that we built, that's simple cloud links, we go and get those things crawled, and you can see them in Search Console, but you can't see them when you search for them on the web and things like that. So the fact that they're not indexed doesn't mean that they're not working. And I would encourage you to go look in Search Console, go look at the links in there, and you can find probably some of those Web 2.0 properties, even though you're not finding them when you're searching for them, as being indexed. So I wouldn't worry about it.
All right. Sometimes I see competitors from various niches ranking with under 100 words. Is it because they've used keywords strategically without fluff, so Google sees them as more relevant? No schema used, by the way. No, not necessarily. We know that whatever content is in an indexable part of the page, because Google doesn't use all parts of the page, so some parts won't help you become findable in search. So if you have some content in the parts of the page that Google does use, you can be findable for those. In the case of like Clint's nothing but schema page, he's findable for the content in his title tag, and that's it. And so that's really cool, so that's kind of how that works. Is you need content that Google can see to rank for it. Now there are theories that anchor text pointed at your page might augment your content of the page. So what people elsewhere on the web credit you for and say that you are might also complement the content that you have on your page. So that could be what's driving it. Let's see.
Yeah, let me there's a couple things on this particular question that I like. One is I can think of I'll give 3 examples of different ways where this could occur in a normal, natural way. One is there's this thing called off page. So, there's more than one way to rank, and we tend to get, myopic. We're like, wait, they only have 100 words. I'm like, yeah, but they might have 15,000, solid backlinks coming to that page where you've got 150. So, that's where they're getting all their ranking power from, even though they only have 100 words. That's one. You have to look at the other part of the equation, and too often we get stuck on the on page. The second thing is sometimes Google favors home pages, for example. So, if you have a plumbing website, your homepage might only have 100 words. Ted's Plumbing, serving Seattle since 1972, and then links out. And his emergency plumbing page might be just killer, but right now Google favors home pages, so his 100-word page is the one that's being selected, even though it's being powered by his internal service pages, which are much better optimized. The third thing is there are sneaky ways that can happen. There's sneaky things that can be done with 301s and canonicals that might have information. Google might have information about that page that you don't actually see on the page. So there's also the stealth SEO, if you want to think of a fourth way of doing it. So don't always believe what you see because there may be more going on behind the scenes.
Yep. He goes on to say, remember the URL stuck in pending validation in GSC because it was marked no index previously. Well, after 3 weeks, it was still pending. I created a new URL and a 301 the pending pages. So yeah, so if you trick Google into thinking it's a new URL with a redirect, you'll get processing faster because new content probably has a higher priority than validating a fix. But you have to throw away your permanent record for the URL and take an extra layer of linking hit because of the redirect. So it's not a free solution. Let's see. Clint says new design means new code. Cleaner code could also be the reason. Reduced HTML. They could have also changed their keyword density doing the design update. Yeah, all this is possibly the case by reducing or increasing overall text. Yeah, there's a lot of reasons things could change. How can we know if a keyword belongs to different page?
Easy test. I got this one. Easy test is you run the keyword for the page and the new keyword and see if the same set of URLs pops up. If it's more or less the same set of URLs, they're synonyms. If they're completely different URLs, not domains, but the URL specific, then they probably belong to different pages.
As an SEO agency, what's the best way to offer link building? What's the easiest, scalable, and most impactful? Well, I try to use the least amount of off-page SEO possible because it's difficult, it's dangerous, it's expensive, and it's slow. And so for my style of SEO, that's the part I want to minimize if at all possible. Um, so, really depends, what your service is. So for your style of SEO, it might be a totally different story, and you might want to do all kinds of different link building. I don't know. Um,
Just to give some quick insights, I'm not going to say this is necessarily the best way to do it, but I will say this is what I see most often, or what folks seem to like the most is agencies will want to sell a number of links, and then they usually sell the links in packages. You're a 10 link a month package, a 20 link a month package, a 50 link a month package. And then hopefully you're telling them how you're getting, you should be telling them how you're getting the links. And hopefully it's something you collaborated with the client. It's like, here's how we're going to get the links for you. That just seems to be the standard way of doing it. Not saying it's the best way or the right way. It's just that seems to be what everyone seems to be doing now.
Yeah, and it's probably the most scalable. If you really care about, scaling it, making sure that that is outsourced, probably makes it the easiest for you, because you just, each month, whatever, based on your need, you place the order for the press release, the guest post, the you do the link outreach, somebody does the link outreach for you. That's that for scalability. That's a whole lot easier than having it internally, because you're only scalable by adding on additional resources. So having the outsource, where you're doing the 10 link a month package, and they're paying you X dollars and you're paying Y dollars, to somebody else to fulfill that. And you're just basically getting a markup for management of that process.
Just be sure you're monitoring. If you're having someone else build the links for you, you might get a client like myself who will track these links monthly to see if they still exist from month to month. So be prepared to make sure these links are going to stick, and they should stick reliably, because there are some of us out there who watch this stuff.
I like Clint's answer. He says you can't have all three. You need to find the two most important to you that actually gets you results based on the competition.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of interesting because like the most impactful link, that would be like a Yahoo homepage footer link. You get one of those and you're done. And if you can, you ought to. That a one and done link that gets you to the top, great. That's an ideal solution if you can pull it off, but most of us can't. So then the next one is, well, what's the easiest links you can get? Well, you get those, but they don't have a lot of impact. So you pay money, that makes it easy, and you get these links, but they don't really move you all that far. So those are good for certain types of keywords, but not all situations. So the easy ones sometimes work, but not necessarily guaranteed to work in all cases. And then you're like, well, I want to get a scalable system. I can't pay $100 per link forever and scale. So we need to have a viral link building campaign where we can get our fans to give us links. And, because we're good at it and so popular, we get thousands of links that way. Well, those are difficult to craft, to make them scalable like that. And they're totally different paths. And I think Clint's right. You probably can't go down all three at the same time. It's, the scalability one, that's a 4-year project. The easiest one has the highest risk with Google. The impactful one is the hardest one to get. So yeah, they can't imagine that you could focus on only one bucket. Let's see. All right. Here we go. If you're creating content regularly, 10 articles per month, for example, what's the best way to approach internal linking? For example, internal link as you go or bulk update once a quarter. I think you should view all websites as an e-com store, no matter what type of website it is, because the e-com store is going to have the upselling widgets, and you should have lots of upselling widgets, even if you're a blog. So if you have a blog article on how to train a puppy, your upselling widgets are going to be other puppy related articles. It could be other training related articles. It could be other animal themed articles. It could be new articles. It could be trending articles. So you have these upselling widgets, and those are going to bring relevant entities, and they're going to do really good cross-linking. And so then it just auto-magically happens if you view all sites in a similar context to ecom. What do you think, Lee?
Well, here's one where it's best is it depends on what you're defining as best. So if you're looking at best for SEO, the moment the article is ready to go live, you get the internal linking from that article out and other articles in. So when it goes, Google understands and can pick up that, and you get the SEO benefit the fastest. That's best for SEO. But for my workload, that's a pain in the ass. It's easier to do it on a periodic basis, monthly or quarterly, or whatever that might be. So you have to be clear on what the best is and that there are trade-offs with those bests.
What's the best use of AI in SEO today? How are you using it today to make your SEO more efficient? AI in SEO is a total game changer. So many people are killing it with AI today. There are basically two approaches that people are doing, one of which is a main content approach, which I'm not a big fan of, but sometimes you do have to create main content. And that's where you create lots of different prompts that each make a little section of an article, and then you tie them all together to make the full main content. And so we call that stitching because you stitch it all together. The tactic that I like better than that is to not put SEO in the main content. Believe it or not, you don't have to. You can rank the whole page from a footer or from a sidebar. So you change your strategy to relevant supplemental content, and you use AI to generate the relevant supplemental content for the page. You could rank the whole page from an accordion and a sidebar. Works great. And what's amazing when you do that is when you need really big numbers for tuning, you don't have to cram them into the main content where it's difficult to do. It takes a lot of time. It's really weird when you put stuff a lot of words into that main article. It can take you all week to do it well. It could scare off the customers and it could piss off the client. So putting the large amounts of SEO in the main content is a really risky thing to do. Supplemental content makes it like a 15-minute problem if you have your accordion templates ready. So why not turn, a week-long SEO problem into a 15-minute, supplemental content problem? And so, yeah, that's how I think most people are doing it today that are getting really awesome benefits. What do you think, Lee?
For the most part, from the beginning, when OpenAI first launched, and now we have all these stuff, largely I've been limited in my use of AI tools to just giving me, a foundational content that I will then edit or modify for whatever purpose, it happens to be, whether it's, pages on a website or video or whatever. But I just got back a week ago from Holly Starks had her Dark AI conference. And one of the things that I'm getting ready to explore is the use of, task trained AI agents. So it goes to execution of tasks beyond just, creating copy or creating content in some form or another. And I think there is some potential there. But we have to see, how intelligent, how well they can execute the tasks and blah 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 and those kind of things. So um, that I think is, has potential, especially if you're an agency owner and you can figure out how to do, apply some of the technologies that way. So, it replaces some of the things that you do with, agents or code that acts in your behalf.
I would agree with you there, Lee. Well, everyone seems to like to use AI to create, AI content. And don't get me wrong, I do. I have sites where I'm creating AI content. I'm a hypocrite. I do it. But I find the most interesting thing is the research that you can do with AI content. Terry, I see you posted something about keyword research, repurposing content. I think that's awesome. I've been using AI to analyze stuff, to take big data and then ask it weird questions about the data. And it's usually very good. It usually understands the data you give it as long as it's nice and structured. You can give it unstructured data and have it organize it for you. So I've been challenging myself to use AI to solve problems as they come up. And it's just amazing the different things. I've had AI. So here was a simple example. I had an HTML page and I wanted to fix the alt text. Now my standard fix would have been go through it, manually change it. And I said, let me ask AI. AI went through and changed it. And then there was something else I was going to do. I would have normally just done a search and replace. I asked AI. AI did it. And AI would always come back with, hey, we noticed this, or we saw this, or we changed this. I'm like, okay. I might not have spotted that. So I've been trying to use AI to almost like a low level VA in some ways, and I'm finding it's very, very helpful.
Mm-hmm.
And I use it to make crappy content too, but I try not to use that as my goal.
All right, let's see. Which part of the page is most important for Google?
Yes.
Um,
The answer is yes.
yeah, so kind of what we've found over the years is that one of the most important factors in SEO is the number of factors you're using. So if you're neglecting, parts of the page, if you're neglecting types of signals, you really want to stop doing that because those diversity signals, they've been pegged at the top of the leaderboard for years. And so, yeah, you don't want to neglect schema. You don't want to neglect off page. If you're one of those traditionalists and you've neglected H4 to H6, you may want to stop doing that. You may. So start thinking about the levers you haven't been pulling, and there are benefits to having diversity. It appears that if you have sufficient factor diversity, you bypass some web spam algorithms in Google. So if you find that you tune your page in the way that you know how to do it, and at a certain point it stops working for you, that's usually a symptom we associate with a specific web spam algorithm, and adding signal diversity is how you get unstuck. And you'll hear this coming in the door. It always sounds like this when it comes in. Yeah, we used to have an SEO. It was going great for a while. Then it all stopped working. So we had to let him go. And now we're here talking to you. That is the most common problem in SEO, and it's running afoul of these web spam algorithms that nail you for not having good diversity of ranking signals. So be sure you're going wide and be sure you're not neglecting. Any thoughts on this?
Yeah, I think we all know if you ask 100 SEOs, the most common answers you're going to get are, title, meta, H1, and then the other header tags, in that order. And in spite of the fact that we know it, we can almost recite it in our sleep. If you go look at most people's pages, they're not taking advantage of those zones. These are high impact zones. So, just stick with the basics. It's a very, very easy, a lot of times fix of pages just to adjust those zones.
Let's see. Okay, many of my sites that got hit with 90% dropping traffic saw massive recovery when I cloned the site and changed the domain name and did a redirect. Yeah, that's the classic recovery when you get an algorithmic penalty, is new domain and redirect the site. It bypasses the penalty. My understanding is that still works today. But the sad part of it is that you have to rebrand, and you do take a little bit of a page rank hit with the additional layer of linking that comes from the redirect. So it's not a free solution, but it does get you most of the way back to where you were. Let's see. I have a 700 to 1,000 word blog post created with PAA content cluster that's ranking for over 800 keywords without any backlinks. What ranking factors might have driven this? From the study that I did, which is only one study, ranking for hundreds and thousands of keywords it has a formula. So you rank for one best keyword first, and depending upon what that keyword is, you can put in very closely related keywords to that keyword and pick up rankings for them. So step one is rank for one best keyword well, and step two is pepper the document with the closely related terms and get a bunch of crappy rankings for all of those too. And so the way it pans out is you rank for hummingbird feeders first, and then you can pick up quick, easy rankings for blue hummingbird feeders, red hummingbird feeders, glass hummingbird feeders, metal hummingbird feeders, hummingbird feeder food. But what it's not is ranking for completely different topics. So you're not ranking for 800 keywords like baseball, ice cream cones, used cars, Seattle plumbers, tax credits. That's not what's happening. It's all very closely related keywords. Lee, you have any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I saw the question that Robbie asked. The interesting thing is a lot of people say without backlinks to the page. Well, is that page on a site? Do those other pages have backlinks? So you can have juice flowing through the site. Unless you can say it's an orphan page somewhere, the without backlinks might not be accurate. But other than that, yeah, as long as if your page is about a particular topic, you cover it thoroughly, and that particular topic has hundreds or thousands of closely themed keywords, then you can do something like that. But basically, you've probably killed it for your primary term, which is hummingbird feeder.
Let's see. Supplemental content are often with a lot of content. It's not always easy to implement them on a sidebar or before footer. So just know that, you could use tab boxes and carousels and sliders. There's lots of different widget types you can use. And Amazon is actually pretty good at this, at getting all of the content into the HTML source, but then only dynamically exposing it with lazy load type behaviors. So Yeah, there's multiple ways to implement it. But yeah, there's usually a way to do it that can get you the solution that you need. When I was asking which parts, I was asking like complementary content sections, etc. Not that technical, sorry. Yeah, no worries there. My preference these days is to put SEO and CRO into their own swim lanes. And I find that SEO gets really fast and easy and effective if you can do that. Um, so I just think that, as an SEO, if you can rank the page from the part that isn't for human beings necessarily, the engagement gets easier and better. And so, you'll have to experiment with that and figure out what works best for your business. And not every client will let you do things the same way. Some clients will demand that you create and modify main content. Some clients will demand that you never touch or modify main content. So it really kind of depends on the client too. Um, but in terms of what's best for Google, Kyle Roof showed with Rhinoplasty Plano that you can throw all the SEO and the main content and get to number one. Clint Butler showed that you can get to number one without having main content, and you can do it all from the schema. And, I'm really a big fan of do it from the supplemental content, rank the page from the footer. There's more than one way to get to the top. And so you kind of have to look at your options and figure out what's best for the client and your resources and time. What do you think, Lee?
I agree. That was perfect.
All right. Some talk about semantic HTML elements and stuff. I have no clue. Yeah, it's good if your headings use outline format. It's good if you use, section tags. It's good if you label your main content. All of these things are ranking signals, and they make sure that you maximize your signals. So if you're using proper outline formats, some of the time you ought to get into H4 to H6 because of the nesting of the outline. And so yeah, being flexible with stuff like that could help you get more signals where your belief system is never go below H3. That might get in the way of getting some signals. So I like to be flexible. Let's see. All right. I think we are there. Let me make sure. Switch from top chat to live chat. All right. I think that's a show. So we will call it there. Thank you, everyone. It's another fun show to do. And we will see you next week. Any farewell messages? How's the training going, Lee?
Training's going well. I would say that the thing right now, just sort of um, a general just message for the past several months. In an election year, things tend to get tight as we get closer and closer to election economically, and this has been a pattern for decades and stuff like that. So you'll see SEO groups have less chat that's going on in them. People are less there. There's a lot of that. You will see that it takes longer to close clients. It takes, you've got leads dropping off, even though you're still, rankings and traffic are still the same. You see all of these particular pieces. Generally speaking, after an election, things return, back to more normal. So, I'm seeing a lot of that out there, a lot of those sort of questions in the SEO groups. Just know that this is, it's a normal election cycle thing. So.
All right.